Have you ever asked yourself how many decisions in your life were truly your own? How many times did you feel in control when in reality you were merely reacting? And what if I told you that what you call kindness or empathy might actually be the very force keeping you in captivity? The one who seeks to dominate others may appear powerful, but the one who has mastered themselves is truly invincible. The wise one, the one who governs their own spirit, is stronger than one who takes a city. This echoes the wisdom found in Proverbs, and it is Carl Jung who warns us with calm precision that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. All of us, at some point, have been hostages to our own emotions. You've cried over someone who never deserved a single tear. Have you ever felt guilty for saying no, even when you knew it was the right thing to do? How many times were you manipulated without even realizing it, just because your compassion outweighed your discernment? We live in an age where chains are no longer made of iron. They're invisible. They're made of guilt, fear, and unspoken expectations. Those who wish to control you today do not raise their voices. They whisper, they weep, they make you feel guilty for choosing your freedom. They don't want you to think, they want you to feel. Because the more you feel, the less you think. And the less you think, the more likely you are to betray yourself. Here, we will explore Jung's ideas, not as a doctrine of cruelty, but as a mirror reflecting human reality. We will descend into the underground of human behavior, where tears become traps and embraces may conceal silent strangulation. And no, this is not about becoming stone. It's about refusing to be a puppet. It's about discovering the precise point between emotion and reason. It's about becoming the master of your own psyche. If you're tired of being drained, manipulated, and consumed by those who turn their wounds into weapons and their lack into strategy, stay with us. We are going to dive into the depths of the unconscious, where Jung whispers, "Power doesn't corrupt, it reveals." You're about to discover that the path to mastery may require not feeling everything, but understanding everything. If you're ready, take a deep breath. Let's begin. Have you ever felt that feeling deeply is both your greatest strength and your greatest downfall? Since childhood, we've been taught that crying is a sign of humanity, that forgiveness is noble, that to feel deeply is to be good. But what if that was a trap? A golden cage where the more you feel, the more you bleed. Society dressed emotion in garments of virtue. But Jung, with his penetrating gaze and surgical insight, reminds us that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Those who feel too much are often the first to be deceived. Why? Because the one who feels hesitates, and the one who hesitates loses. What no one tells you is that emotion, as beautiful as it may be, can also be used as an instrument of domination. Like wine poured by manipulative hands, it intoxicates, warms, and then binds. How many times have you said yes when every part of you wanted to scream no? How many times did you stay, even when your soul was begging to leave, because the other person cried, shook, or begged? The brutal truth is that excess empathy can become submission. It's not that feeling is wrong. It's that feeling without boundaries, without discernment, is dangerous. It's like lighting a candle in the middle of a storm. It may shine for a moment, but it is easily extinguished. And the world is full of storms, full of people who blow in your direction not to warm you, but to snuff out your light. In some silent hour of the night, alone with your thoughts, have you realized that you carry pain that doesn't even belong to you, inherited guilt, imposed responsibilities, expectations you were never meant to fulfill. You feel for everyone, but no one seems to feel for you. You carry the weight of a world that doesn't even notice your shoulders. That is not kindness. That is emotional servitude. Jung reminds us that reason becomes unproductive when it is not rooted in the totality of the psyche, and those who reject it cannot be swayed by it. You don't awaken the unconscious in others through empathy. You simply feed their defense mechanisms. Uncontrolled emotion is not a virtue, it is exposure, and the one who lives with their heart too open becomes an easy map for those who seek to exploit it. Love without discernment, forgiveness without reflection, compassion without boundaries. It all sounds beautiful in inspirational quotes, but in practice, it destroys. This is not about turning into stone. It's about recognizing that even gold must be protected. You are far too valuable to be so accessible. Your emotional energy is a finite resource, and like all finite things, it must be managed with intention and strategy. This is where true self-knowledge begins, when you realize that you don't need to react to everything you feel. You can feel, and yet remain still. You can understand, and still choose not to accept. You can listen to someone's pain, and still prioritize your own peace. Detachment, not as coldness, but as conscious self-mastery. It's the ability to become the author of your emotional narrative, rather than the character others attempt to write against your will. And perhaps, just perhaps, true freedom begins right here, in the moment you stop trying to rescue everyone and start liberating yourself from yourself. They don't need to raise a hand to wound you. They don't need to shout to dominate you. All they need is for you to feel. The more you feel, the more predictable you become. And if you are predictable, you are controllable. Carl Jung understood this long before modern psychology could fully articulate it. For Jung, true power lies in the relationship between the unconscious and the self, not in domination, but in awareness. And awareness reveals this: human beings act from emotion before reason, and those who understand this govern. Today, the throne is no longer found in castles. It resides in relationships, in social media, in the silent games of emotional influence. Emotional blackmail is now mistaken for affection. Victimhood disguises itself as vulnerability. And the manipulator, he doesn't arrive as the villain. He cries before he strikes. We live in an era where tears wield more power than logic, because emotion shortens the path to the heart and derails the mind. You no longer need to be right. It's enough to appear wounded, and the emotional court of public opinion will absolve or condemn you on that alone. Have you noticed how someone suddenly changes when confronted? First, they play the offended, then the misunderstood, then they say, "After all I did for you." That's not remorse. That's control. This is not about who's right. It's about who holds the narrative. And in this invisible theater, emotion becomes the script that intoxicates, confuses, and disarms. You find yourself explaining things you didn't do, apologizing for things you don't even understand, defending truths that should never have been questioned. That is the goal: to take away your clarity so that, lost in the fog, you rely on them. They sow confusion and offer themselves as the compass. Jung once warned that what remains unconscious in you will appear in your life as fate. And here it is, the unresolved wounds, the shadow in disguise, seeking power over you. But there's another kind of danger, not the one who suffers in silence, but the one who pretends to suffer to avoid accountability. These are not victims, they are actors, turning your empathy into a tool of control. This is where the idea of emotional sovereignty emerges. It's not about being indifferent to the world, but about recognizing that to survive it, you cannot hand over the steering wheel of your psyche to those who only want to drive you into ruin. Every time you hesitate out of pity, every time you back down to avoid seeming harsh, every time you silence your truth to avoid conflict, you lose ground, you surrender emotional territory, and those who conquer it rarely return it. You must understand, emotional silence is not the absence of feeling, it is strategy. It's the sword of the inner warrior who, instead of striking, observes, and when necessary, steps back, but never surrenders. Because in the end, this silent war is not won by shouting. It is won with presence, with resolve, with the kind of coldness that doesn't come from a lack of love, but from lucidity, the kind Jung would respect, not because it dominates, but because it is self-governing. Jung never advocated cruelty. He didn't glorify detachment for its own sake, but as a path toward inner clarity. In a world where every emotional gesture is a map of your psyche, silence becomes camouflage, and detachment, a subtle form of freedom. When Jung spoke of individuation, he wasn't promoting isolation. He was describing the sacred process of becoming whole, free from the projections and expectations of others. That often misunderstood phrase, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both," was never a celebration of fear. It was a warning against emotional dependency as a foundation for authority. It wasn't about dehumanization. It was a raw dissection of power. And Jung would have likely agreed. The one who governs their inner world, who embraces their shadow, who knows the silence within, cannot be ruled by noise from the outside. When power rests in affection, it dissolves with the fluctuation of feelings. The detachment Carl Jung suggests is not emptiness. It is the ability to govern your impulses before they govern you. It's seeing someone's tears and asking, is this genuine pain or a strategic mask? It's walking among emotions, yet remaining centered within the self. And here lies the most delicate point. Being emotionally strategic does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming fair to yourself. It means not punishing yourself with promises made in the heat of emotion. It's realizing that the yes you say to please others is often a disguised no toward your own truth. Have you noticed how those without boundaries are always more exhausted? How those who feel too much are often caught in the middle of dramas they didn't start? In this sense, detachment is not a withdrawal from empathy, but the maturity to choose when and where to invest your emotional energy. Think about it. Would you let anyone drive your car at full speed through mountain curves while you sleep in the back seat? Of course not. Yet every day, you allow others to steer your emotions, and with them, your decisions. Jung, although misunderstood at times, was a profound observer of the human psyche. He didn't ask us to be indifferent. He asked us to be aware. And awareness requires distance, not cold, inhuman distance, but the distance necessary to perceive the whole. Not just the emotional theater unfolding before you. You don't have to be a stone, but you also don't have to be a sponge. And this brings us to a deep psychological concept, aligned with Jung and Stoic thought: equanimity, the peace of the soul that arises when you stop reacting to what you cannot control. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about them." And if you learn to discern between authentic emotion and emotional manipulation, you'll be on the path to true inner sovereignty. Detachment, then, is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of awareness. It's not allowing someone else's tears to dictate your ethics. It's saying no without hatred, yes without guilt, goodbye without drama. Because those who can't let go will always be dragged along. And as Jung might say, those who gain favor from others must not depend on it, for what is given by the collective can be taken away. But when the oppressor is your own emotion, then true self-mastery is born, not in contempt for others, but in unwavering respect for yourself. And that respect, that center, that coldness that does not kill but protects, is the rarest form of freedom. Becoming unshakable doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you learn to feel without drowning. It's like diving into the ocean and knowing how to swim instead of sinking every time an emotional wave rises. In today's world, true weakness isn't in feeling nothing. It's in being ruled by every feeling. Do you remember how many times your peace was shattered by an unanswered message, a calculated silence, a glance that implied guilt? These small moments are actually hooks thrown by those who know that human emotion, especially guilt and the need to be accepted, are the easiest buttons to push. You must understand this. There are people who feed off your imbalance. They thrive on your need to explain, to be understood, to be liked. Every time you justify your absence, your decision, your boundary, you open a door, and when they enter, they don't knock. They invade, rearrange your inner space, and worse, make you feel guilty for wanting to reclaim it. But there's a secret, one that almost no one teaches. You can feel and not respond. You can listen and not absorb. You can witness another's pain and still not sacrifice yourself. That's not coldness. It's wisdom. It's the difference between being a conscious individual and being part of a manipulated crowd. That's the key. You are not what you feel. You are what you choose to do with what you feel. Once you understand that, everything changes. You begin to see the invisible game. Every accusation, every silence, every crisis becomes a piece on the board. And on that board, the king is the one who remains still while everything else trembles. To be emotionally unshakable means this: to remain whole in the middle of the war, to not react impulsively, to respond with clarity, and perhaps more than anything, it means understanding that you no longer need to prove anything. You don't need to justify your no. You don't need to explain your distance. You are not open code. You are sacred territory, and access to that territory must be earned, not demanded. Carl Jung didn't want you to stop feeling. He wanted you to stop being a slave to what you feel. He wanted you to become the master of yourself. And in this digital hysteria, where everyone shouts, where everyone is offended, where everything becomes drama, your calm is a revolution. Your calculated indifference is a shield. Your silence is the new scream of freedom. You may be called insensitive, cold, distant, but what you're really becoming is free. Because being free means no longer living based on other people's emotions. It means not allowing yesterday's tears to determine tomorrow's path. It means understanding that empathy without limits becomes a chain, and that the only way to break free is to stop reacting. You were not born to be manipulated. You were born to be whole. And maybe, in the end, the most honest question you can ask yourself is, how many times did my emotions speak louder and I silence myself? You no longer need to be everyone's hero, not if that means becoming the villain in your own story. Empathy without discernment becomes a trap. Love without wisdom becomes a prison. Guilt planted in your heart becomes a leash. And without realizing it, you end up living a script written by someone who never truly saw you. Jung didn't preach emotional detachment. He preached lucidity, the conscious presence of self. He understood that one who rules their own heart does not surrender to emotional blackmail. They don't lose sleep trying to understand someone who never intended to be understood. They don't carry burdens disguised as cries for help that are actually attempts at control. You have the right to protect your peace as if it were your final frontier, because maybe it is. You have the right to say no without explanation, to close doors without a warning, to love without self-sacrifice. True power doesn't lie in feeling less. It lies in feeling with wisdom, in choosing what deserves your affection and what deserves only silence. And when you realize that you can look into the eyes of someone who used to manipulate you and feel no anger, no fear, no guilt, only a quiet, cold respect from someone who can no longer be touched, you'll understand. That is the beginning of freedom, the birth of the unshakable self, and the end of the old you, the one made of doubt, tears, and self-abandonment. You're not here to please others. You're here to be whole. And sometimes, being whole means feeling nothing, so that you can finally control everything. Let me tell you something I had never said out loud before. This script, this message, was not born from a brilliant idea. It was born from a scar. On a random night, phone in hand, a message appeared on the screen. Words that seemed like affection, but carried hidden venom. I read it, swallowed hard, and for a few seconds I thought of replying, apologizing, even though I had done nothing wrong, even though I knew it was just another emotional rope trying to tighten around my neck. And then I remembered all the times I gave in, all the times I kept quiet just to keep the peace. But it was never my peace. I bent out of fear of seeming cruel. I was kind until I lost myself. That night, there were no screams, no replies, just a quiet awakening. I wasn't wrong to protect my space. It wasn't selfishness. It was survival. It was finally maturity. And maybe you're here for the same reason, because at some point in your life, you felt too much, and you were used for that, because you learned to be silent so as not to lose. But in that silence, you lost yourself. This video is a hug for you, a whisper that reminds you it's okay to set boundaries. Your heart wasn't made to be a showcase for other people's wounds. Your empathy should not be a prison. Now, I want to offer you something that isn't for everyone, but it is for you. You, who made it this far, searching for deeper answers about who you are and where your life is going. I created something that goes beyond a book. I built a map for the soul, a guide that merges science, philosophy, and critical thought, a tool to help you break mental patterns, question your identity, and rebuild yourself from the root. This isn't an e-book of pretty quotes. It's a guide for those who can no longer stand living on autopilot. If you felt something here, it's because something inside you is waking up. And I thank you for letting that truth breathe with you, even just for a moment. Truly, thank you. Hey, you, the one who stayed until the end. Yes, I'm talking to you. If this video stirred something deep inside, don't leave in silence, okay? Like the video, or pretend you liked it. Just help the algorithm. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel, because you know how it goes. You watch, you cry, you reflect, and then you forget where you found it. Turn on the notification bell. Yes, the one you always ignore. It exists for a reason. And leave a comment below. I choose my peace. Let's see how many of us are finally ready to stop bleeding for those who only know how to press the wound. Now look at these two videos on the screen. One of them will show you a part of yourself you're still afraid to face. But that's okay. Click it. It'll be uncomfortable. But there are truths that only grow when we have the courage to face them in the dark. Go on. I'll see you at the next abyss, or the next awakening. Most people live more aware of other people's lives than their own. They chase after what their friends are doing, compare themselves to what others post on social media, and envy someone else's success. But when I ask them, what are you really focused on? They don't know how to answer. Everywhere I go, the conclusion is the same. Millions have forgotten that the greatest project of their life is themselves. Not their boss, not their partner, not their neighbors. You are your project. You are your investment. You are your priority. Understand this once and for all. No one is coming to save you. No one will build your discipline. No one will raise your self-esteem. No one will bring order into your life. That's your responsibility. And here's the good news. The moment you decide to focus on yourself, when you take the first step, the entire universe begins to open doors that once seemed forever closed. I want to speak to you directly, as I would in a private Jungian session. If you can't place yourself at the center of your own life, you'll always live off the crumbs of others. You'll live as a spectator instead of the main character. And I know you weren't born to be a spectator. Take a moment and tell me, what's the first thing you're going to change today to focus more on yourself? And before we continue, subscribe and share this message, because what's coming next could mark a before and after in your life. Think for a moment, how many times have you placed everyone ahead of you? Your family, your partner, your friends, your co-workers, always saying yes, even when you're exhausted inside, even when you know it's pulling you away from your dreams. That misunderstood sacrifice has a cost, and that cost is your own life. I've seen successful entrepreneurs lose their health because they never invested in themselves. I've seen mothers and fathers so drained they forgot how to dream. I've seen young people spend 10 years trying to fit into a group, only to realize they haven't taken a single step on their own path. The truth is hard. If you don't invest in yourself, the world won't invest in you. Respect, success, and opportunity come when you project strength, clarity, and direction. But if your energy is always scattered trying to please everyone, you'll end up empty. Think of it as a bank account. Every time you focus on yourself, you make a deposit into your future. Every time you neglect yourself, you make a withdrawal. And if your balance hits zero, it doesn't matter how much you try to give. There will simply be nothing left. Today's decision is clear. Start putting yourself first. Not out of ego, but out of responsibility. Because when you're strong, disciplined, and focused, you give the best of yourself to those you love. Imagine your life as a river. The water flows with power, but without direction. It disperses. It's lost. It turns into stagnant swamps. That's your energy, your thoughts, your time, your discipline. If you don't channel them toward yourself, toward your growth, your goals, they'll end up feeding other people's dreams while yours dries out. I've worked with thousands of people, and I always ask, where do you invest most of your energy each day? Most answer, work, social media, family problems, what others think of me. Very few say, in my growth, my discipline, my personal goals. And that's the difference between those who move forward and those who remain trapped in mediocrity. Those who focus on themselves advance. Those who scatter their energy on others burn out. Look, no one's asking you to ignore your family or your responsibilities, but you must understand this. Your greatest gift to the world is becoming your best version. When you are strong, your family becomes stronger. When you are disciplined, your work flourishes. When you are clear in your purpose, you inspire those around you. But when you're tired, frustrated, and lost, what can you give? Nothing. The price of not focusing on yourself is becoming a shadow of what you could have been. Remember this clearly. Energy follows attention. Wherever you place your focus, your life will grow. Focus on comparison, and envy will grow. Focus on distraction, and emptiness will grow. But focus on yourself, on your discipline, your mind, your purpose, and greatness will grow. Right now, begin to redirect your energy. Don't waste it on what you can't control. Move it toward what you can control. Your attitude, your decisions, your time. Because the power of your life lies in your own hands, not in anyone else's. In my seminars, I often ask, how many of you compared yourself to someone else today? Almost every hand goes up. And that's where the real work begins, when you finally realize that the only life you're meant to master is your own. Do you know why? Because comparison has become a toxic habit that consumes millions of people every single day. We live in an age where, with a single click, you can witness someone else's seemingly perfect life, their new car, their beach vacation, their promotion, and immediately you think, I should be there. I should have that. I'm falling behind. But here's the truth that almost no one dares to say. What you see online are results, not the process. You see victories, not the nights of doubt, the unpaid bills, or the silent failures that shaped those victories. No one shares the moments when they break down, when they feel lost, or when they question everything. Yet, you compare yourself to that illusion. Carl Jung taught that the greatest suffering of the modern man is disconnection from his own inner path. I've seen people lose years of their lives trying to reach the image of another, forgetting their own journey, their own symbolic road toward individuation, the process of becoming who they truly are. And the result is always the same: frustration, emptiness, and a painful sense that life is slipping away. Understand this. The only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Are you a little more conscious today than you were before? Did you make one effort more than you did yesterday? Did you take one step closer to your authentic self? That is progress. That is self-realization. When you compete with others, you drain your energy. When you compete with yourself, you awaken your power. The man or woman who learns to focus inward, who measures progress by inner transformation rather than external validation, becomes unstoppable. Because every day adds up, every day builds strength, and every day expands consciousness. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine you're a runner on a track. If you spend your time looking at the other lanes, you lose balance, you stumble, and eventually you fall. But when your eyes remain fixed on your own lane, when your vision is directed toward your goal, you move forward with focus and strength. Life works the same way. Your race is yours, no one else's. Stop looking outward and start looking inward. Every minute you spend comparing yourself to others is a minute you don't invest in your own growth, and that time will never return. Focus on you. Make yourself your own point of reference, and every night before you sleep, ask yourself, did I move one step further than yesterday? If the answer is yes, then you are walking the right path. After decades of observing the human psyche, Carl Jung concluded that success, in its deepest sense, is never an accident. It is the result of inner discipline, the alignment between the conscious and the unconscious self. Discipline begins the moment you decide to place your inner being at the center of your life. Many mistake this for selfishness, but it is not. It is responsibility, a sacred duty to protect the vessel that carries your purpose. If you don't take care of your mind, your body, and your soul, no one else will. I've seen gifted individuals collapse because they neglected their inner world. I've seen families fall apart because someone refused to rest and reconnect with themselves. I've seen dreams fade because people constantly place themselves last. Think of it this way. Before a plane takes off, the instructions are clear. In case of emergency, put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Why? Because if you don't breathe, you can't save anyone. The same principle applies to life. If you don't have the inner discipline to strengthen yourself, sooner or later, you will not be able to hold anyone else up. The discipline of putting yourself first means creating sacred routines, waking up earlier to work on your mind, dedicating daily time to your physical and emotional health, saying no to what drains you, and yes to what elevates you. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Those who are used to your constant availability may not understand it. But remember what Jung said. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you finally choose to honor yourself, you stop living by comparison and start living by awareness. And that, my friend, is where true freedom begins. Some will even criticize you, but listen carefully. You are not here to live according to anyone else's expectations. You are here to fulfill your inner purpose. True respect is not earned by sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It is earned when others recognize your clarity, strength, and sense of direction. And that clarity only comes when you learn to put yourself first. Today, I want you to make a firm decision. From this moment on, every action you take should bring you closer to the person you want to become. Ask yourself, does this strengthen me or weaken me? Does this bring me closer to my goal or take me further away? That inner discipline is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. And remember, you don't need to change everything in one day. You only need to begin. Discipline is not built through great leaps, but through steady, deliberate steps. We live in the age of distraction. Never before in human history has it been so easy to lose focus. With a simple movement of your finger, you have access to endless entertainment, endless news, and endless notifications stealing your attention every second. But the problem is not technology itself. The real problem is that when you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. Carl Jung observed that the fragmented mind becomes the weakest of all. I've seen people with immense talent, unique abilities, and enormous potential who never accomplish anything great because their attention is shattered. They start a project and abandon it. They build a habit and drop it. They fill their minds with ideas, but never create anything lasting. Distraction is the silent enemy of your greatness, and each time you surrender to it, you are giving away your life in small, invisible doses. Reflect for a moment. How many hours of your day are lost to things that do not move you closer to your purpose? How many times do you open your phone for a minute and end up losing an hour? How many days have you told yourself tomorrow while being busy with trivialities? The truth is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. If you don't control your focus, someone else will. And let me remind you, every great achievement was born from a focused mind. Edison didn't invent the light bulb while checking for updates. Beethoven didn't compose symphonies while being interrupted every 5 minutes. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations while comparing his life to others. Your success depends on a single skill: learning to silence the noise and open the path back to yourself. Because only when distraction dies, greatness is born. Jung taught that the mind expands in silence. When the inner world becomes still, the self begins to emerge. Throughout my travels and teachings, I discovered that most people don't fail because of lack of talent or opportunity. They fail because they don't know how to say no. Saying yes to everything seems noble, generous, even kind. But every time you say yes to what doesn't matter, you are saying no to your own life. I've seen young people with enormous dreams burn out because they didn't have the courage to reject the distractions of their friends. I've seen brilliant professionals trapped in commitments they never wanted because they feared saying no. I've seen parents exhausted, living for everyone but themselves because they feel guilty for putting themselves first. Remember this forever. Saying no to what doesn't elevate you is saying yes to your purpose. When someone asks for your time for something meaningless and you say no, you are protecting your energy. When someone tries to drag you into empty discussions and you say no, you are saving your peace. When someone attempts to impose their version of life upon you and you say no, you are defending your greatness. Real respect doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from setting clear boundaries, from showing that you have a mission and that you are not willing to compromise it. The most successful people I've met are not the most agreeable or accommodating. They are the most self-aware. They know what they want. They know what they don't want, and they express it without fear. So here's your challenge. Start practicing the art of saying no with dignity. You don't need long excuses. A simple, firm, no thank you carries more power than 1,000 justifications. And every time you do it, you'll feel something shift inside. You'll feel your focus returning to you. Because in life, focus is not given. It is protected. And the courage to say no is the wall that guards your purpose. Now I want you to do something tonight. When you're alone, look at yourself in the mirror. Not the way you usually do, quickly while getting ready. Look deeply. Observe your eyes, your face, your expression. Ask yourself, am I truly living as the person I wish to become? The mirror never lies. It will show you if you're tired because you've ignored your well-being. It will show you if you're sad because you've denied your dreams. It will show you if you feel empty because you've lived more for others than for yourself. And in that moment, you will face two choices. You can continue covering your reality with excuses like, I don't have time. It's not the right moment. It's too late. Or you can face the truth with courage and decide to change. Jung would remind you that transformation does not begin in comfort, but in the honest confrontation with one's own reflection. And that reflection, the one that dares to see itself fully, is where the journey toward the self truly begins. Keep your promises to yourself, because trust is not built by what you say to the world, but by what you fulfill within. Every time you say, "Tomorrow I'll start," and don't, the mirror remembers. Every time you promise discipline and fail, the mirror reflects it. But every time you follow through, even with the smallest step, the mirror begins to show pride, dignity, and strength. Understand this. The most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself. If you respect yourself, others will respect you. If you abandon yourself, others will abandon you too. The mirror never lies because it reflects the truth of how you've treated your own soul. So tonight, when you face it, make a small but honest promise to yourself. It could be reading 10 pages, taking a short walk, writing your goals, or meditating for 5 minutes. The size doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep your word, because every fulfilled promise becomes another brick in the foundation of your self-trust. And when trust grows, focus becomes unshakable. Most people crave instant results. They exercise for a week and want a transformed body. They save money for a month and want financial freedom. They take one course and want to be experts. And when they don't see quick results, they quit. But Carl Jung taught that the most powerful transformations are invisible at first. When you start reading daily, it feels like nothing changes. When you begin to save, the amount seems insignificant. When you start meditating, discomfort is all you feel. But what's invisible accumulates, and one day, without realizing it, it becomes visible. I've seen it countless times. People who once felt stuck, after a year of quiet effort, become unrecognizable. Not because something magical happened, but because day after day, they planted in silence. Invisible progress builds empires. While others chase shortcuts, you build foundations, and real foundations never collapse. Think about this. Bamboo spends years growing underground when no one can see it. No applause, no recognition. It seems like nothing's happening, but when it finally breaks the surface, it grows meters in just weeks. Your life works the same way. The work you do in silence, the focus you maintain when no one's watching, will one day explode into results everyone will see. That's why you must never underestimate small steps. Never mock your slow progress, because each step you take toward yourself moves you away from the stagnation of others. Discipline is patience in motion. And if you have the patience to trust the process, one day the entire world will be astonished by your transformation. Understand this with absolute clarity. Your life doesn't change when governments change, when the economy shifts, or when people around you behave differently. Your life changes the day you decide to change. That is the true turning point. It's not in luck, inheritance, or anyone's approval. It lies in your decision. And that decision, my friend, is to focus on yourself. For years, I have seen the same scene repeat itself. A person arrives burdened by failure, head down, convinced it's too late, believing others have gone too far ahead. But after truly deciding to change, they return, months later, completely transformed. And the most surprising thing is that the world around them hasn't changed much. What changed was the way they saw themselves. Because when you change, your entire perception of life changes, and with it, everything else begins to transform. When you change, your decisions change. When you change, the energy with which you walk through the world transforms as well. Let me ask you something. What would happen if, starting today, instead of focusing on what others do, you devoted yourself, with discipline, to your own growth? What would happen if, instead of wasting hours comparing yourself, you invested that time in learning a new skill, training your body, and strengthening your mind? What would happen if every day, even by just 1%, you became stronger, clearer, more disciplined? I'll tell you this, in a year, your life would be unrecognizable, and in 5 years, you might barely recognize yourself. But here's the problem. Most people never make that choice. They wait for the world to change. They wait for the perfect moment, but that moment never comes, because the only perfect moment is this one. Now look at your life as if it were a train. You're standing at a station. If you don't decide to get on the train of your own growth today, tomorrow it will be harder, the day after tomorrow more expensive, and in a year, the train might not even be there. The decision to focus on yourself cannot be postponed. Every day you do it, you gain strength. Every day you don't, you lose it. Carl Jung once said that the greatest tragedy of a human being is to spend life looking outward, never realizing that the treasure lies within. I've seen people who started with nothing and built empires simply because one day they said, "Enough. Today, I focus on myself, on my discipline, on my purpose." I've seen parents who, after years of sacrificing for everyone but themselves, decided to recover their strength, to study, to start a business, and their entire families were transformed. I've seen young people who seemed destined for mediocrity, but with one firm decision, rewrote their entire story. It all began with a spark, with that inner declaration, "Today, I choose to focus on myself." I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine two paths before you. On the first, everything stays the same. Distractions, comparisons, broken promises, constantly postponing what you know must be done. Imagine your life 5 years from now if nothing changes. Do you like what you see? Now imagine the second path. Each day, a small step forward. Not perfect, but constant. You read, you train, you work on your mind, you build habits. Imagine your life in 5 years if you start today. Do you feel the difference? The distance between those two paths isn't luck, genetics, or destiny. It's a single choice, to focus on yourself. So I want to invite you to something deeper. Don't leave this as a mere thought. Turn it into a declaration. Write it down right now. Today, I decide to focus on myself. Do it, because when you write it, you affirm it. When you declare it, you strengthen it. And when you share it, you commit to it. And listen carefully. The world will remain noisy. People will keep talking. Distractions will continue trying to steal your focus. Problems will never disappear. But when you are centered within yourself, when you become your own priority, none of that will stop you. Because greatness is never achieved under perfect external conditions. It is born from an unshakable inner focus. And that focus awakens the day you decide that your life will not be an accident, but a conscious project. So let me leave you with this truth. Everything can change starting today. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not next year. Today. Make yourself your mission. Make yourself your greatest investment. Make yourself your priority. And you'll see how, little by little, your entire world begins to transform. Imagine for a moment that within you lies a sleeping giant, an immense force that you've barely begun to explore. That giant is your true potential, your creativity, your discipline, your resilience. What's fascinating is that many people feel deep inside that they're meant for something greater, that they haven't even come close to what they could become. And yet, most remain asleep beside that giant, trapped in routines and distractions that keep them distant from their own greatness. Carl Jung taught that the difference between those who achieve the extraordinary and those who remain in mediocrity doesn't lie in talent or opportunity. It lies in the willingness to awaken that inner power. He observed that people begin to transform the moment they believe in themselves and act with conscious intent. Greatness, then, is not a gift, it's a decision. When you realize that potential is not a matter of luck, but the result of an inner psychological process, your perception of life changes completely. It isn't magic or chance, it's discipline, clarity, and courage. Each small step you take forward awakens a deeper layer of that sleeping giant, and once it awakens, there's no turning back. Your life can no longer remain the same because you start to live from a higher level of consciousness and purpose. Your past, your failures, or the limitations imposed upon you by others do not define what you are capable of achieving. What truly matters is the decision you make today. Every morning grants you the opportunity to rewrite your destiny, to act from your inner power rather than your fears. And that is where true transformation begins. When you stop asking yourself what you might lose and start asking what you can create, everything shifts. Within you lies the energy needed for an extraordinary life. You don't need permission or ideal conditions. Your potential doesn't wait for validation. It waits for action. Each day you rise with determination, even when circumstances aren't ideal. You send a message to your unconscious: I am ready to grow. Through repetition, greatness becomes your new normal. The awakening of your potential is like lighting a lamp in a dark room. At first, the light seems dim, but as you keep it burning, you begin to see more clearly what was once hidden. You uncover dormant talents, forgotten abilities, and a strength you never imagined you possessed. And the most powerful part is that this light not only illuminates your path, it inspires others to ignite their own. So today, I invite you to see this not as theory, but as a personal call. It doesn't matter if yesterday you were paralyzed by doubt or confined by the opinions of others. From this moment on, you can decide that your life moves forward, that you will no longer live in the shadow of your potential, but will walk toward your own greatness. This is the true turning point, the conscious decision to never settle again. And before moving on, affirm it within yourself and declare it aloud. Today, I begin to awaken my greatness. Write it not as a beautiful phrase, but as a commitment to your own transformation. Let this be your reminder that this day marked the beginning of a new life, a life where you choose never again to live beneath what you are capable of. Your potential is always shaped by the image you hold of yourself. It is an invisible mirror that determines not only what you think of yourself, but also what you allow into your reality. When that inner image is small, your decisions shrink, your actions weaken, and your results remain limited. But when you elevate your self-image, when you see yourself as capable, strong, and worthy, that vision instantly reflects in your actions and achievements. Jung discovered that people don't act according to what they desire, but according to how they perceive themselves. If someone sees themselves as weak, they will act weak, even with every opportunity before them. If someone sees themselves as strong, they will move decisively, even amid uncertainty. That is the power and the danger of self-image. It becomes the invisible boundary that defines how far you're willing to go. Think of it as a thermostat. No matter how much the temperature changes, it always adjusts to return to its preset level. Your self-image works the same way. If you see yourself as average, even when you achieve something remarkable, your mind will unconsciously sabotage you to return to normal. But when you elevate your inner standard, anything below that vision becomes unacceptable, and your psyche naturally works to correct it. Every day, you have the choice to strengthen or weaken your self-image. It is nourished by your thoughts, the words you use to describe yourself, and the actions you consistently repeat. If every morning you tell yourself, "I can't, I'm not good enough, this isn't for me," your mind accepts it as truth and behaves accordingly. But if you begin to repeat, "I am capable, I deserve more, I am building my greatness," that inner dialogue becomes the foundation of new behavior. Carl Jung explained that the unconscious does not distinguish between what is real and what is deeply believed. Whatever you affirm with conviction eventually shapes your reality. Over time, any idea planted in your mind grows roots. That is why elevating your self-image is not a random act, but a conscious daily discipline. It is not about waiting for external success to feel worthy. It begins by forming the image of who you wish to become, and then acting as if you already were that person. That internal alignment is what generates external transformation. Imagine an athlete who sees himself as a world champion long before winning any title. That vision provides direction, strength, and resilience. Every sacrifice and setback becomes part of the path toward that identity. Now think of another athlete with the same physical talent, but who sees himself as an amateur with no future. The difference in their results won't lie in their physical strength, but in the power of the image they hold within. Jung believed that the outer world mirrors the inner one, and I experienced this truth myself. For years, I saw myself as limited, trapped in mediocrity, and that belief created the reality I feared. The day I decided to change that internal picture and began to treat myself as someone capable of greatness, my actions changed. I sought new knowledge, surrounded myself with different people, took on greater challenges, and it all started with one simple question: how do I see myself? So now, I invite you to pause and look within with absolute honesty. Ask yourself whether you're treating yourself as someone destined for mediocrity or as someone with an extraordinary future. That question defines everything, because you can never rise above the image you hold of yourself. Once you decide to elevate it, to see yourself as great, your performance and your results will inevitably expand. Self-image is not a detail. It is the origin of every transformation. Picture two identical cars on the same racetrack. Both have the same engine, power, and conditions, yet one has a full tank, while the other has only a few drops of fuel. Which do you think will go farther? That's exactly how your life works. Your talents and resources may be identical to someone else's, but if your inner attitude is empty, you won't travel far. Jung taught that attitude is the key that turns potential into movement. The difference between progress and stagnation is rarely about intelligence or opportunity, but about the mental position from which you face each day. A negative mind is like trying to run with the brakes on. You may have energy and talent, but you move painfully slow. A positive mind, however, acts like an accelerator, amplifying every effort you make. Your attitude becomes the filter that determines whether a challenge stops you or propels you forward. And what's remarkable is that attitude does not depend on outer events, but on the choices made within. Each morning, you have the chance to decide whether to fill your inner tank with thoughts of enthusiasm, confidence, and gratitude, or to drain it with worry, fear, and complaint. That invisible choice shapes visible results. It defines your energy, focus, and even how the world responds to you. I witnessed this in the early years of my own journey. There were mornings when I woke up convinced that life was hard, that I didn't have enough, that nothing would work out, and my results reflected exactly that. But when I began to wake up expecting something good to happen, everything started to shift. Opportunities that I once overlooked became visible, and my productivity soared. It wasn't magic, it was focus. A positive attitude is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, possibilities appear where only shadows existed. The challenges don't vanish, but your perception transforms. What once seemed impossible becomes a path of growth. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said that transformation begins the moment we change the way we see ourselves. That transformation of perspective is what separates those who give up quickly from those who persist until they succeed. Carl Jung taught that attitude is not a mere reaction to life, but a conscious creation of the self. It's not about waiting to feel positive. It's a discipline of the soul, a daily act of inner alignment. You can reprogram your mind by reading something that uplifts you in the morning, writing 3 things you're grateful for, or reminding yourself of your purpose before stepping outside. Each of these gestures feeds your inner reservoir and strengthens the expectation of success. Just as a car needs constant fuel, your mind needs daily emotional nourishment. The contrast is clear. People with negative attitudes may possess all the tools and still remain stuck because they focus on what's missing or what isn't working. Those who cultivate a positive inner state, however, transform even limited resources into opportunities because their energy drives them to act, persist, and create. It's not always the most talented who go the farthest, but the one who sustains the right mental disposition to keep going. Jung would say that success belongs to the one who integrates will and vision. So each morning, ask yourself this question: with what attitude will I fill my inner tank today? That single decision determines how you face challenges, how you use your gifts, and how fast you move toward your goals. Remember, even the most powerful car is useless without fuel, and your most extraordinary life won't function without the right attitude. Fill your tank with empowering thoughts, and you'll see how the path to success unfolds naturally before you. Your fears are like invisible bars standing between you and your greatness. You can't touch them, you can't see them, but their influence is real. They restrict your choices, shrink your confidence, and keep you trapped in safe zones that offer no growth. Each time you allow fear to direct your life, you become its prisoner. The most deceptive part is that you rarely notice it. The fear of failure is the most common bar. It makes you doubt your abilities before you even try. It leads you to postpone decisions and settle for less than you deserve. The irony is that many people never truly fail. They only fail because fear steals their action. Those who dare to take a step forward, even while trembling, soon realize that every attempt weakens fear's hold on them. The fear of rejection works in a similar way, but it attacks your relationship with others. It makes you depend on external approval, conform to others' expectations, and silence your inner voice. When you fear not being accepted, You avoid situations where you could shine, learn, or grow. But every time you speak, act, or propose something despite that anxiety, you break one of the bars that held you captive. Facing fear doesn't mean it disappears instantly. It's a gradual process, a training of the mind and character. Each courageous act, however small, weakens its control. The first time you speak in public, share an idea, or take a calculated risk, you're striking those bars. With every strike, your freedom expands a little more. Jung observed that many people with immense potential remain stagnant because fear paralyzes them, while others, with fewer resources, move forward because they dare to act. The difference lies not in the absence of fear, but in the courage to confront it. We all feel fear. Only some choose to use it as fuel, while others use it as an excuse to stay in their invisible cages. A powerful way to begin is to ask yourself, what would I do if I weren't afraid? That question works like a hidden map, revealing paths that once seemed impossible. It forces you to imagine possibilities without limitation. And in doing so, your mind begins to accept that those paths can indeed be walked. What's extraordinary is that this single question ignites a spark of movement. It pushes you forward even while the bars are still there. Repeated action is the most effective antidote to fear. Every time you act despite anxiety, your mind learns that the world doesn't destroy you, that mistakes are teachers, and that rejection is not fatal, that accumulated wisdom, practiced day by day, weakens the invisible cage until one day you can move freely, without fear, defining the boundaries of your life. Remember that fear is always an indicator of your potential for growth. Wherever you feel fear, that's precisely where the most meaningful expansion will occur. Each time you face fear, you expand your comfort zone and discover that you are far stronger, more capable, and freer than you ever imagined. Ask yourself right now, what would you do today if fear didn't exist? That answer may be the first step toward the life you've always desired. Motivation, as Carl Jung explained, is like the wind. Sometimes it blows with force, and other times it disappears without warning. It may inspire you for minutes or even hours, but it can never be trusted as a foundation for a consistent life. If you rely solely on motivation, your results will fluctuate like the weather. One day moving forward with passion, the next standing still. Discipline, however, is not dependent on external forces. It is an inner engine, always ready to move. It's an internal compass, pointing toward your true north, your most meaningful goals, no matter how fierce the storms may become. It doesn't matter if you feel tired, bored, or discouraged. When you act with discipline, you keep advancing. Every action taken out of commitment, rather than emotion, strengthens your character and reinforces your trust in yourself. Discipline is not punishment, it's transformation. It becomes a sacred habit that shapes your identity, turning you into someone who honors their word and purpose. Keeping promises to yourself is the surest way to build self-esteem. Each time you choose action over comfort, you reaffirm the image of a capable and reliable person. This silent coherence creates a domino effect. The more you honor your word, the more confidence you gain in your choices, and the faster you approach your best self. Discipline becomes the multiplier of your potential, the master key that turns dreams into tangible realities. No matter how vast or ambitious your vision may be, if you cultivate the ability to act daily without depending on motivation, no obstacle will be insurmountable. Each step you take no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal. Over time, these accumulated steps generate extraordinary results that once seemed impossible. The fascinating thing is that the more you practice discipline, the freer you become. Dependency on emotions or external stimuli fades away. You no longer wait to feel inspired. You act because your mind and character have been trained to follow through on your commitment. That kind of freedom is profound. It means you are the master of your life, that no one and nothing can stop you once you decide to move forward. Discipline also acts as a shield against procrastination. While motivation can be fleeting and deceptive, discipline remains firm, even in difficult days. Every time you overcome the temptation to delay an action, you strengthen your inner resistance and increase your ability to face greater challenges in the future. What seems like a small effort today becomes a lifelong habit of resilience. Discipline, as Jung would say, is not rigidity. It is the bridge between intention and manifestation. You can use it to learn new skills, improve your relationships, build healthy habits, or progress in your career. Every disciplined act is a silent vote in favor of the person you aspire to become. And with each vote, your identity grows and your potential unfolds. Remember always, discipline is a form of freedom. When you act without relying on external motivation, you become the architect of your destiny. Obstacles stop being excuses and become stepping stones for growth. Ask yourself now, what disciplined action can I take today, even if I don't feel like it, that brings me closer to the person I want to become? That single decision may become the turning point that transforms your life forever. We all fall. We all make mistakes. Even the most accomplished and admired individuals face failure and setbacks. The key is not to avoid falling, but to understand how you respond when you hit the ground. Every mistake is a mirror revealing parts of yourself that need awareness. Each fall contains the seed of wisdom that, if nurtured, strengthens and enlightens you. Think of a boxer in the ring. He may be knocked down again and again, feel the weight of the blow and the sting of humiliation. But what defines him is not the number of times he falls. It's how quickly he stands back up. Each time he rises, he reaffirms his determination, strengthens his spirit, and reminds his mind that failure is not the end, but a necessary step toward mastery. When you learn to rise quickly, the emotional impact of the fall diminishes. Guilt, self-pity, and paralysis begin to lose their grip. Acting immediately after a setback transforms a negative event into a source of momentum, turning obstacles into opportunities for expansion and awareness. Resilience is never born in comfort. It's forged in difficulty. Every time you choose to get up, you train your mind and character to face the unexpected with clarity and composure. You become capable of maintaining mental stability even when life feels overwhelming. The habit of rising fast separates those who achieve extraordinary results from those trapped in frustration. Each fall is also a lesson in humility. It reminds you that perfection is a myth, but reinforces your power over your response. Learning to stand quickly means assuming full responsibility for your life, without blaming others or waiting for ideal conditions. That ability to respond immediately multiplies your inner strength and expands your potential for success. The constant practice of standing up swiftly makes you almost immune to the paralysis of fear. The more you act after stumbling, the more faith you develop in your ability to handle anything. The fear of falling loses its power because you know that you will always rise again, that progress does not depend on perfection, but on persistence. Rise even before you feel ready. Immediate action creates momentum that reflection alone cannot produce. Every movement after a fall generates an invisible force that propels you forward, accelerating your growth and shaping you into the person you were always meant to become. That habit transforms every adverse experience into a stepping stone toward your highest self, revealing that your true power lies not in perfection, but in how consistently you rise after every fall. Carl Jung taught that what truly defines an individual is not the absence of failure, but the courage to confront the unconscious forces within and stand up again. Consciously, ask yourself, what action can I take now, in this very moment, to rise from my setbacks and continue moving toward my purpose? That single decision to act immediately can mark the boundary between stagnation and the unfolding of your potential. What you expect determines what you attract. Every thought and expectation acts as an invisible magnet, pulling people, events, and circumstances into your reality. When your mind focuses on positive outcomes, you begin to perceive possibilities that once seemed invisible. It is a simple but profound principle. The level of your expectations defines the size of your world. Imagine your life as a garden. If you plant seeds of doubt and fear, only thorns will grow. But if you nurture faith, trust, and optimistic expectations, the flowers that bloom will be opportunities, creativity, and success. Everything begins with what you decide to expect from each day, each relationship, and every goal you pursue. Your expectations work as filters that shape how your mind interprets reality. If you expect the worst, your attention clings to problems and limitations. But when you expect the best, your awareness expands toward possibilities, guidance, and allies that lead you closer to your vision. It is a shift in perception that radically transforms your daily experience. Think of it like tuning a radio frequency. When you align with the right signal, the music flows clearly. If you choose the wrong one, all you hear is static. Your expectations work the same way. When they are tuned to success, abundance, and growth, you start to perceive the subtle signs the psyche sends you to guide your evolution. Every expectation generates energy within you. Expecting the best fills you with motivation and creative impulse. That energy translates into concrete action, wiser choices, and relationships that expand your life. Those who expect and believe in extraordinary results act with greater determination and achieve transformations that those imprisoned by fear could never imagine. But this is not about naive optimism or magical thinking. To expect the best is not to deny reality, but to consciously direct your inner energy towards solutions instead of problems. Positive expectation, as Jung would say, is not a fantasy. It is a psychological compass that aligns the conscious and the unconscious toward a unified goal. What you expect creates a feedback loop. Your beliefs shape your actions shape your results, and your results reinforce your beliefs. If you continually expect success, your experiences confirm that belief and strengthen your confidence. But if you expect failure, every setback becomes proof of your inner fears. This is why mastering expectation is essential to awaken your true potential. Now ask yourself, what are you truly expecting from your life? Are your thoughts, choices, and actions aligned with expansion and fulfillment? Or are you unconsciously limiting yourself with fear and self-doubt? What you choose to expect today will define what your mind begins to create tomorrow. When you adjust your expectations, you start seeing paths that were always there, but hidden from your awareness. You discover opportunities that were waiting for your perception to evolve. Real growth never depends on external circumstances. It begins with internal decisions. The image you hold of yourself, the attitude you sustain, the discipline you embody, and how quickly you rise after every fall are the foundations of an extraordinary existence. Everything begins and ends in your mind. Remember, greatness is not a destination. It is a process of conscious becoming. Every day, you choose to act despite fear, to favor discipline over comfort, and to sustain positive expectations over doubt. You unlock another layer of your inner strength. No matter where you are today, what truly matters is the direction you choose to move in. Within you lies an infinite potential waiting to be awakened, and every conscious step you take toward it becomes a victory that no one can take away. So my final message is this: stop waiting for permission to grow. You are the only one who can release the force already within you. Now I want to hear from you. What inner habit do you believe you need to cultivate most to awaken your potential? Discipline, attitude, or resilience? Write your answer in the comments and remember to affirm, "Today, I begin to awaken my greatness," so that your commitment is sealed within your consciousness. Because true greatness is not about surpassing others. It is about transcending yourself every single day. This has been a journey into the realm of personal transformation. Until next time.